Hello and welcome to Down to Earth Convos Down Under, episode 28. In this episode, we get into techniques you can use to nail your job interview, be it in person or online.
Hi there, Brad. How you doing over there in WA?
Doing fantastic, Ali. How are you over on the Sunshine Coast?
Yeah, everything's going really well here. And I am looking forward to today's topic. You're going to be sharing your 5 quick tips to kick ass during an interview. Looking forward to it.
Shall we get started?
Let's get started. Let's get right into it. Your tip number 1 is all about selling yourself and being more curious about the actual company.
Yeah, so not so much the emphasis on selling yourself. A lot of people go into an interview thinking that, it's about themselves, it's about their skills, their value, that sort of thing. And, it is a little bit, but it's more than that. It's about the fit between you and the company. And you can only uncover that by asking questions. And so these can be, surface level questions like the company values, questions about the team. But it can also be, really getting into the weeds about like processes, what their app ecosystem looks like, the tools that they use and that sort of thing. So there can be a lot of variety in what you want to do there. But really what you want more than anything else is show your interest in them as people that are hiring you, the interest in the company, its direction, where it's going, biggest lessons that they've learned, growth challenges that they've had, learning about the journey that they've been on and come through. That is going to put you on a higher level than someone who comes in and talks about themselves and their skills 9 times out of 10 for sure.
Yeah, because it's a tendency. Yeah, that's really great. Great information that you're sharing there. Because it seems like that we do have a tendency to want to sell ourselves, thinking that's what we should do. Like I know that goes back from when I would have gone into job interviews and what have you. But really, it's really flipping it, isn't it? It's all about them, the company.
Yeah, very much so, and about them, the person who's hiring you as well. So it's a bit more connection and a bit less just about yourself the whole time. I think is going to help a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a great tip to share. And that's pretty much number 1, isn't it? So like we're assuming that they've done everything else right. So this is just when they're presenting themselves in an actual interview.
Correct. Yes.
Be curious about the company and the person interviewing you.
Yeah, exactly. It's after you've landed that interview. So if we then went on to tip number 2, it's to research the company and to make some notes. So it depends a little bit on the role you're after and what you actually research and look at. So if you're going into the product side of things, creating, building, designing the product, you want to research the product, the competitors, the market sentiment about the product, that sort of thing. If it's the marketing, then you can look at the website, you can look at the social media channels, you can look at how they're doing in terms of SEO, in terms of paid ads. You can do this like an audit report, I guess, and look for the opportunities. Where are the gaps in what they're doing currently? What's working well? What isn't? From what you can see on the outside, you can't see everything, not being inside the company yet, but you can see a lot. If it's a sales role, you can look at maybe a little bit of everything for a sales role. And you don't go quite as deep on anything in particular, but you get a better general sense of what's going on. And why do this? Because no one wants to interview someone who has no ideas to bring to the table, who doesn't have a basic knowledge of the company, and who isn't, to a base level up to speed with what the company is about and what's going on. So a little bit of research, read the company website, look at a few competitors' websites, look for similarities and differences. Again, depends on the role, but yeah, you really want to understand the company, who owns the company, who are the founders, what's their story and their journey a little bit. You don't need to read their whole bios and everything, but just the basics, and it'll give you a leg up because you might have something in common with the person who is hiring, and you can actually talk about that. It might be something totally different. You speak a language that they happen to speak, or you've been somewhere that they've happened to go. And it gives you that, like I say, a point of connection.
Yeah, rapport. And it can help
Yes.
relax the nerves that are generally prevalent during an interview
For sure.
situation.
For
Taking
sure.
notes. And then when you're, great messages that you're sharing there and tips there. So I guess if they tuned into one of those things too, that where they could add value. So if they identified gaps, what have you, or if it was SEO and they were really good at it, it's a chance that they can go, that's where I shine, or something like that. But that's again sort of selling again, isn't it?
Exactly. But you can sell yourself. It's just you're predominantly making it about them. And you make it about them so that you can sell yourself better, with less about your random skill set and more specifically about what's relevant and what actually organically comes up.
Excellent. Yes. Very, very true. Being specific, not
Yes,
random.
Exactly.
So that's tip number 2, which was research the company and make some notes.
Yep.
But tip number 3, identify areas where you can improve and positively contribute to the company. That's
Yeah, exactly. It's finding those gaps. And I've said it earlier. You can't see so much from the outside, but you can see some things, and you can compare with competitors. You can compare with other companies that are in a totally different industry. If, the company that you're looking at has a website that's really outdated, or social media posts that are just going nowhere, you can look at someone who's getting success in that area and see what you can do to emulate that and to replicate that. And you want to make these suggestions without stepping on anyone's toes or criticizing things that you perceive may not be up to scratch, because you don't know who's doing it and you don't know their skill set and experience and so on. Really, you just want to focus on the improvements that you can make and what that would look like. And so my marketing background, I often come at it a marketing perspective. Of course, you can come at it from a product perspective as well, like improvements in the actual product. You can come at it with sales techniques and ideas that the company may or may not be doing. So you can suggest something, and there's a chance that the company's already doing that. It's just something that you can't see from the outside. But just bringing that to the table is so much better than not having anything to offer in an interview. You don't want to be in an interview where you don't have ideas and suggestions to offer. And maybe they even disagree and they think that's a horrible and shit idea. That's actually still going to be better than turning up and not having any ideas to give.
Yeah, well, that'd be great. I would love someone to come into my place of employment and interview them, and they're throwing around ideas of ways that you can do things better or differently. That's an intelligent conversation. I think that would stand out and make them shine in an interview. Yeah, that's really cool.
Very much so. And so linking to that.
Yep, leading from that, I will remind everyone that we say this a lot, the quality of life is based on the quality of questions you ask. Let you talk about asking questions in an interview.
Well, yeah, it links back to point number 1, of course. You're asking about the company, but asking great questions just in general, because it shows that forward tilt, that quality of character, that you're a driven person who's got some thoughts and ideas and is switched on when it comes to work. It shows your work ethic. So how do you find good questions? Typically not from a list of good questions to ask in an interview online search. You might get a good idea or something that sends you down a path from that. But typically you want to make it organic. Think real practical questions that come up through the discussion or through your research. So this all links together. It's, doing that research, and maybe something doesn't quite add up, or something seems a little questionable. That's a question for the interviewer. So really just be curious, show that you're thinking about how you can do your job well, efficiently, while working at that company. And that also helps the interviewer to see you as someone who's already in that role. And the more that you can look like you're already in that role and you're already capable, confident, and, just thinking about how you would do the role, the more they're going to see you as the ideal fit for that role.
Great. And be willing to say, hey, give me a go. Because that would be a great idea too, just to throw that in there, wouldn't it? Because it looks like that they've really mastered. If people can master this, whether they're teenagers or, you know, we're talking to the teens, you know, from the parents' point of view, even to have these interview skills, they could just really stand out against the average person that's they're selling themselves instead of linking it to the company's values and what's important to them, the company.
Definitely. Yeah. And it becomes a part of a conversation then. So
it's sensational.
yes. If
It's
we then
excellent.
go on to point number 5, well, in this current world that we live in, a lot more interviews are happening over Zoom than face-to-face. And it's kind of just the trend that the world was headed in anyway, with a lot of work shifting to online, work from home. A lot of it's digital nowadays. So obviously, when you're doing an interview over Zoom, your presentation does matter. A great piece of advice that I've heard is, instead of, you know, throwing on a suit and blazer and really dressing up every time, wear what other company employees are going to wear on a daily basis in their team meetings and so on. A lot of companies will post on their social media or on their website photos from team meetings. Just wear something that's kind of going to fit in with that. And then that way you show up as someone who is like the rest of the team. And the more that you can seem like the rest of the team, the better you're going to do, because it's going to show that you're going to fit in better. So that goes the same if you're showing up to an interview face-to-face in real life as well. What else? The background's going to matter. The audio, the lighting, that matters. You don't need studio quality for almost any role unless you're doing something that's, you know, voice acting or, you know, professional. But 9 times out of 10, you just want decent audio, decent lighting. You don't, as long as you don't have glaring issues on that side, then yeah, you don't need to be an expert. So what I would do is set up your camera, set up your laptop, set up your webcam wherever you want it, do a call with someone, or even just load it up yourself and see, is there any major issue going on here, or is it fine? And if there's a major issue, then you can work and correct that. Generally, you don't want lights above you, because down lights create that shadow on your face and it looks horrible. But as long as you've got, you know, ambient lighting, maybe one on either side. You can see at the moment, if you're watching the video on YouTube, I've got one light on this side. I don't have one on this side. Doesn't look quite right, but it's also not terrible. So as long as your lighting is okay, then that's fine. So other than that, don't forget what you talk about and how you handle the interview is, you know, 80%. So be interested in them, be interested in the company, ask questions, follow those other pointers that we had, those points 1 through 4, and you're going to stand a very, very good chance, and you're going to separate yourself from the competition, I think. And so to sum those up and to go through those again, that is to be curious about the company, research and get to know the company ahead of time. And it's pretty obvious, because a lot of people who resume spam, they don't actually do it. They don't know anything about the company, and then they land the interview. Maybe they land a few and they still don't really do much research. They might look at the website, but then they're not thinking, they're not asking any questions. They're just doing the bare basics. Look for opportunities that you can use to positively contribute to that company. What do you bring to the table? What can you do for them? You know, give them an idea or a few ideas of different projects that you could do to get started. Yeah, that's one thing. Ask questions about the company, about the role. Clarify things if you're not sure. You know, does this role involve doing X, Y, Z? No reason not to ask those things, and it shows that you're switched on, that you're thinking about it. And dress not so much to impress, but to fit in and look like an existing team member. Not any particular existing team member, or it might look a little strange, but just the general vibe. And of course, you know, you don't want to look daggy, but as long as you got the basics on point, then you should be fine.
I'm sure they'll be fine. They are excellent tips, those 5 tips that you've shared, Brad, and well summarised there. Some really valuable tips for interview technique, would you say? Yeah, it's interview technique, and just reminders of what you should do, what you need to do for this age that we live in now. And great that you put forward the Zoom, the virtual interview scenario too, because it's becoming predominantly the number one means of communication, isn't it, at the moment in these times we're living in?
Yeah, definitely. And an idea's just popped into my head about Zoom. You may not be aware if you're in a room that has an echo. So what you can do is you can record just with yourself. You don't need anybody else in there. You can press record and just say a couple of words, speak as if you were naturally, normally in an interview, exit the meeting, and it'll export that as a video, play it back, and see how your audio sounds. And that way you can check for everything. You can see the lightings as you're doing it, but then you can listen back, make sure the audio is fine. Yeah,
that's right. And sometimes if they're nervous or they're really concentrating on the interview that they're in, they might forget about the big gap between their positioning or something like that. So yeah, have a practice run and log on early so you've got plenty of time in case there's any techo issues, which often happens with technology, doesn't it?
Yes, very, very handy to be ahead of time. And one of your sayings that I really like, early is on time is late. So make sure you're early.
Yeah, like 5 minutes would be equally good. I mean, in a real person-to-person scenario, I'd probably say 10, 15 minutes easily, but I'm guessing Zoom, as long as you're there logging on, because then they can see that you've arrived to the meeting earlier. You could do 10 minutes. That wouldn't be a problem, I guess. Yeah, great.
Yeah,
well done,
sure.
Brad.
And sometimes you might get someone who sends you a link, 1 minute beforehand. So that can happen.
Yes, that does happen for sure. But be ready there to jump straight on.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. That was really informative. Great tips. 5 top tips to kick ass in any interview.
Thanks, Sally. Yeah, it was a short one today, but if you've got questions, ideas, thoughts, please put those in the comments below. Might turn into a future podcast episode. Thanks, Sally. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.
Thanks, Brad.